But so I joined the Army out of college. I had an ROTC scholarship and became what they call ordnance officer, which is a form of logistics. I was a logistics officer for 22 years, retired as a colonel in '06.
All right, so
And I spent most of my career.
I want to stick a pin in that for a second. The good thing about interrupting you during this kind of question is that there's no chance of you are losing your train of thought because you're telling us your life story. And I don't. One of the things that I was like a tremendous, treat was when I learned in the course of conversations. This was public conversations that you were an experienced veteran, not just someone who was in for a few years. I was in for 0, but 22 years, that is a career. That is a career, and a former officer and someone who has been abroad quite a bit. And we'll talk about that later. But let's face it, on Twitter, when talking about politics and talking about culture war, having that kind of experience gives you a tremendous gravitas. Like my friend Kurt Schlichter, another retired colonel. Of course, you could just be a dog, right? It's the internet, but ultimately, I think you've demonstrated several times that you know what you're talking about. Okay, so 22 years in the Army doing
and before you, let me just
stuff.
You mentioned Kurt. Shout out to Kurt. He's also been a big help to me, advising me on
He was a great
with my
American.
account. So yeah, I love him. And I was reading his books long before I was ever on Twitter. So I sort of bounced my career like most Army officers do between being at the tactical level in infantry divisions. I spent a lot of time with the 82nd Airborne Division, but then alternating with sort of strategic level assignments at the Joint Staff, at the Department of the Army, at the Defense Logistics Agency. And because I was a logistician, it gave me exposure to sort of the hamburger grinding making of the military, and which has caused me to be highly disillusioned in many ways about how Washington, D.C. operates. But it's a great career. I loved it. I loved being with soldiers. Went to combat in Afghanistan and Iraq, and brought all my soldiers home from Afghanistan, which is probably my greatest and best accomplishment in life as far as professional stuff goes.
That's